Hey guys, what's up? It is week 348. I obviously had just had some dental work done, some gum replacement down here, so I'm looking a little swollen. Look like I got dip down here, or maybe I just had visited the tobacco man a little too much from Redneck Zombies. But let's hop into this. I have some reviews for you, and my Severin Black Friday deal came in. So first up is The Day of the Locust from Arrow Video. This is 1975. The director of Marathon Man and Midnight Cowboy did this one. This is a movie that I just heard about in passing. I had not really heard too much about it. I feel like this movie, honestly, was probably one of these movies that didn't do as well as it should have done, or it kind of gained a cult status later on. It stars Donald Sutherland, William Atherton, Karen Black, Burgess Meredith, Richard Dysart, Bo Hopkins, Billy Barty. So a fantastic cast. It's a period piece, takes place in the 30s, kind of 40s, I think 30s, maybe late 30s, Hollywood. So we have a lot of like kind of references to Hollywood. William Atherton is trying to get a job. I think he's like a drawer, kind of sketch artist, kind of draws these scenes, all this kind of deal. And he lives in this kind of these apartments, these kind of famous little apartment things. And somebody that lives next to him is Karen Black. She's like a struggling actress. She's in kind of small roles and everything like that. And her father is played by Burgess Meredith, who is kind of a snake oil salesman. Used to be kind of a vaudeville kind of performer. His performance is really out there, really fantastic. As is Karen Black's. William Atherton develops some feelings for Karen Black, but Karen Black is mentally ill. She's like one of these characters that, she flaunts what she has in front of people. It's a really kind of complex, really disturbing kind of character, and the whole thing is kind of crazy, and how William Atherton reacts to all that. It gets very ugly. Richard Dysart is basically kind of like a producer on the film. He's fantastic. You guys know him from The Prophecy, the John Frankenheimer film, and of course The Thing, where he plays Doc Copper. But he has some good lines in here. The set designs are perfect. You get to see all these sets and all this kind of things like that. I feel like the whole movie was made on sets on top of that. I don't know if they tore down the streets or anything like that. I did listen to some of the special features. They didn't really reference a lot of that too much, but there was some like stuff where they dive into the background and talk about old Hollywood. Lee Gambon has a nice little video essay where he talks a lot about Karen Black's character and a lot about old Hollywood and all these kind of things like that, and reflections. It's really good. I really got a lot out of it. I thought it was fantastic. Besides that, the movie, I was really kind of blown away with it. Donald Sutherland is a really neurotic performance in here, and he's this kind of very tame, very timid character, and he is just a sad character. And you watch Karen Black and his relationship, and it's just kind of a devastating thing. And the film has this wonderful premonition done on art that comes to fruition at the very end, and it turns into nightmare fuel. It turns into a horror film in the last act. It is this kind of I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets really crazy and really dark. Jackie Earle Haley is in here as well as a young kid. Another great performance. Billy Barty, it was excellent to see him, because Billy Barty, he's a small person, so he's always like kind of thrown into roles like Gwildor from Master Universe, where he's playing these kind of comical characters like But this one, he is just this venomous. Almost everybody in here has this like venomous tongue, and he's just kind of just really derogatory and a great character. And let's go to the cat house, all things like that. Bo Hopkins is good as always. He's solid. And just how Karen Black kind of manipulates Bo Hopkins and William Atherton and Donald Sutherland is just really fantastic. I think she's excellent in this movie. And it's weird seeing Karen Black. She was in a lot of like classic 70s not horror films, but she was in a lot of classic 70s horror films, but she was in a lot of classic like big movies too. And she kind of was one of those actresses that went to the horror kind of run, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of crazy to see that, and I feel like Brad Dourif was like that, and Gary Busey was kind of like on a higher end in a lot of these 70s kind of movies, and he ended up being in a lot of B pictures, like if you look back and like, I don't know how well respected Lolly Madonna LLC was and stuff like that with Gary Busey, but it had a great cast and it was a really strong film. And it's just weird where the actors end up. And I love her performance in House on the Edge, House of a Thousand Corpses. She's a lot of houses, but it's just so different from this. I mean, she has that weird kind of thing about her. But no, this movie is really dark, really entertaining. Great character study. Just kind of I wouldn't call it. I guess it's a slice of life. Follows all these characters, and sometimes it'll leave characters for long periods of time, and it'll focus on some characters, and you almost forget about certain people. There's a great scene on a set of a Napoleon movie that which is really devastating. Just dark too, but comedic in ways, but also a very, very great drama and just a wonderful movie. I was really impressed with it. I'd not heard much about it, and I thought it was well done, well acted, well executed. And here's the thing about a lot of old films. Maybe you don't like everything about it. Maybe you think the script's a little weak or something like that. I'm not saying this film is that, but they always had these character actors, or they always had acting in it that was special, that stood out, that people in the background, just the side characters, would just be fantastic. And this is exactly what this is. So excellent movie. And William Atherton, of course, go on to be in like Ghostbusters, and the girl next door, he's actually in that one. But Ghostbusters and Die Hard, and he always played this kind of typical asshole. This was a different role for him. This was an earlier role for him, and it was kind of different. It was nice to see him do something different, honestly. But regardless, I thought this was an excellent movie. As far as the features are concerned, we have an oral history audio commentary conducted by writer and film historian Lee Gaiman, featuring assistant directors Leslie Aspin and Chuck Zarko, production assistant Michael Childers, actors Granger Hines and Pepe Cerna, title designer Dan Perry, costume designer Ann Roth, assistant editor Alan L. Shetflat, and assistant camera operator Ron Vintor. I got to see some of that. I listened to that, but I should have listened to a lot more of it. I was on a kind of a tight schedule, but I did listen to Welcome to West Hollywood, Brand New Appreciation by film critic Glenn Kelly. Or, no, Days of the Golden Age, costume historian and film historian Eliza Rose. I listened to the entire commentary. I thought Lee Gaiman had a... brand new visual essay on the film and themes by writer and film historian Lee Gaiman. There it is. Where'd you get those peepers, Jeepers Creepers? That's the one I listened to. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it broke down a lot of things, and it really kind of put some insight on Karen Black's character. And there's people that you meet like Karen Black in real life that possibly are mentally ill, that possibly are manipulative, and these kind of aspects. And it's just an interesting look at a character. In these older films, they have these characters that are very gray, very bad, maybe in a lot of ways, but they're interesting. And I never have a problem with characters that I despise or characters that I'm iffy on in terms of liking them. I just have a problem with boring characters. And when we have boring cookie-cutter characters, that's when I tune out. There's some great characters that are bad people or gray market people that I love in film. This has tons of them. This has that in spades. So just excellent features on here, as well as tons of things on here. We have a Days of Golden Age costume historian and film historian Eliza Rose discusses the film's costumes, a brand new visual essay. And we have image galleries, all sorts of stuff here. So it's just a great release, 1975. Not heard too much people talk about it. Don't sleep on this one. It looks gorgeous. Great looking movie too. So excellent. Check it out. Day of the Locust. Okay, next one here is from MVD Rewind Collection. This is an interesting one. Mondo, New York. This is kind of like a weird kind of documentary, pseudo-documentary deal where it has performances and all these kind of things in there. And it's kind of talking about like the gentrification of New York in the late 80s and all this. And it has a lot of interviews with people that live in the area, a lot of like people that are drug users, street comedians, street performers, all that kind of stuff, punk rock artists. The first thing I noticed is they have this really crazy punk rock show on stage. And the lead singer in here is doing what's this Madonna song, and what is it? No, it's not Madonna. Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, whatever. But the actress in that is actually the one who plays Toxic Avenger's girlfriend in part 2 and 3, and she gets a pretty risque on stage to the point where I was like, oh, not that I'm offended. I was like, oh, that's crazy. That's punk rock. More power to you. I was just like, oh shit. I literally said, oh shit. Didn't expect to see that in here, and that kind of sets the precedent for the movie. Like they go through and they have all these people, and it's just an interesting kind of slice of New York, and I think it's that you kind of get to see it. There's a scene in here where they have these street comedians, and they are just they're kind of like making fun of the crowd. There's a lot of racial and ethnic humor, which is obviously a big taboo now, And what the big comedian in here is Willie. Geez, I can't remember his name. He's the Rat Man in The Stand. And he's also in Ghost. And he was in a ton of movies. He's in Carlito's Way. He was a stand-up comedian. And he died of HIV, I think, from drug use. Sharing needles and something along those lines. And he's on here, and he does this whole thing about all these different races, like how gay people are, black gays and the Puerto Rican gays and the white gays. And it's just, actually, it's genuinely like, it's outdated humor. but it's kind of that South Park aspect, right, where you're picking on everybody from all these different walks of life, and it's just an interesting look at seeing these people, this crowd watch it, and all these kind of things. And you also see all these performances that are pretty good, and just bizarre, and very much of their time. I don't know how much is a put on, there is some animal cruelty in here. There is a stage performer that bites some heads off rats, a la, the classic Ozzy Osbourne biting the heads off bats or doves or whichever it was, but that kind of deal. And there's interviews with a lot of these people on here, and some of their thought processes probably don't line up a lot with what people think nowadays. Their way, this kind of punk rock aesthetic, this counterculture, transgressive kind of look at society that they had back then, and them reflecting on it, talking in these interviews, probably isn't going to line up with a lot of the people that feel themselves as transgressive now, or whatever. I don't even know if people are transgressive now. Are they? I guess there is art being made, yes, and art is transgressive, and a lot of it, but it's very underground, and I feel like this is underground but exposed. You don't know if does underground art even get exposed anymore? What is a true underground art that has any eyes on it? I don't know. Maybe it's so underground now. It's so weird to me, because I would feel that some of the extreme films where there's actually body modification and body harm in there, I would probably say that it could be considered transgressive art, although I've not taken a dive into that stuff. But in film, watching them, I'm not going to do it to myself. It's not my thing. But, in terms of film, I have not watched those. But I feel like, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, you had a lot of people doing these things and pushing boundaries. And maybe they didn't, I don't know the timeline of discovery for them, but you think Richard Kern and stuff like that. And that has a namesake now. And these people, a lot of these people in here do too. So I'm just wondering. I'm wondering where it starts and where it begins, and is it gone? It's kind of hard. And I don't know if I'm just getting that old man off my lawn property mentality where it's like, oh, it was better back in the day when things. You never know. When you're in the moment, it's hard to say what it is, right? And when you look back at something, it's much easier to reflect on it. That's probably why I tend to watch older films in general. When I watch newer films, I reflect what they do from the older films in general anyways. That's just what I like to do. But as far as the special features are concerned here, we have interview with Joe Coleman. That's long, 50 minutes. Interview with Jodi Arias for another 50 minutes. Interview with Shauna Laumeister, 36. Interview with producer Stuart Shapiro, about 30 minutes. And we have a 18-page booklet, original theatrical trailer, and we have a soundtrack CD. And there's a couple of memorable songs in here for sure. But yeah, this is interesting stuff. I wonder, they have Lydia Lunch in here. She does the opening, of course. She's in the Richard Kern movies too. I think You Killed Me First. Is she in that one? I definitely do remember her shooting a gun while getting railed on a car. How could you forget that? But I think that's her, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm trying to find the comedian here. Rick Alves, I think that's his name. Yeah, that's the comedian. But interesting stuff. I enjoyed this. I thought it was pretty cool. Looks good too. I think this is probably 16 millimeter. Is this 16 millimeter? It has original camera negatives. I'm not sure, but it's got a gritty quality. But fuck, it's New York in the 80s, late 80s, right before they kind of gentrified the whole thing. So yeah, interesting stuff. Good stuff. I know Art Ediger's a fan of it. He mentioned when they posted it, when they released it, he mentioned that he was happy to finally have a copy of it. So am I. It's pretty good. Interesting. We got another Film Masters here. I'm loving these releases here. Lots of interesting stuff. And the first one up is The Devil's Partner. We'll talk about that. It also has Creature from the Haunted Sea on there. So The Devil's Partner is kind of an interesting movie. Reminds me a bit of stuff that would come later, like Needful Things or Brotherhood of Satan from '71. It's definitely a satanic kind of horror film. In the very beginning, we have this old man who basically has this kind of, obviously a demonic ritual. He kills himself, and he writes something for 2 years. Sacrifices a goat. This younger man comes into town saying that his uncle died, all these kind of things like that. He moves in. He's well-liked almost immediately. He has his eyes on this young woman at this gas station. Seems to like her. She's getting engaged to this guy who runs this gas station. This guy starts working at the gas station, and pretty soon people start having these horrible acts happen to him. The fiance has his dog attack him. He gets his face scarred. People are dying in car accidents. The local kind of drunk ends up just getting trampled by a horse. All these kind of weird things like that. And of course, all signs are going to point to this young, interesting, seemingly nice man who moved in. and we kind of have a devil story. It's an interesting one. I like the small town feel. It's different. A lot of these small town feels always kind of go back to like the 50s sci-fi giant bugs. To see them deal with like a satanic element was kind of cool, interesting. And, to see an early kind of look at the satanic panic kind of horror film, I liked it. I thought this was pretty good, pretty interesting. And overall, it's solid. It's short. It's quick. Likable characters. Fairly well acted. Not too slow. Not too boring. Just a solid kind of B picture. No complaints about the Devil's Partner. Like I said, I don't want to spoil absolutely everything, although I probably pretty much did. There's not too much to the story, but there is constantly something happening. There's constant action, and it's not the most incredibly made film, but it's completely serviceable on a budget, and I would recommend this one. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Looks good, too. I mean, the film masters look really good. Like, nobody's going to take the time to do these movies. That's what, some of them are probably public domain, too, so, like, when I see these remastered, it's just like, thank you. Like, I really love seeing Little Shop of Horrors last week because I didn't even know there wasn't really an HD Blu-ray or anything like that. So seeing that on Blu-ray is like, yeah, I enjoy that movie. I think that is a good, important piece of horror history. Honestly, it has that comedy element that kind of carried on into a lot of other horror films. That zany, weird, quirky goofiness that a lot of films would take for sure. And I think it's in there. And this one I think was interesting. I never really heard of The Devil's Partner. I didn't know about this movie. So you got two versions of the movie. You got audio commentary by Larry Stroth, James Gonis, Sean Sheridan, and Matt Wyman from Monster Party Podcast. Hollywood Intruders. This is the third part of the documentary, the film group story, part 3. And I think there's a lot of Courtney Joyner in that, which is always welcome. Roger Corman, Remembering Film Group, a new interview with Roger Corman, and then a 2024 recut trailer. So good stuff. All right, the second picture on here of this newly remastered set is The Creature from Haunted Sea, which is absolutely hilarious. This is a very silly movie. This one is directed by Corman, if I'm not mistaken. And I at first confused it with the Beast from the Haunted Cave, which is another Corman film. And I was like, wait, no, this is a completely different movie. And this has the pretty iconic, hilarious scene. They show it in one of the documentaries earlier, where the girl says, "No matter who you kill, no matter where you go, I'll always love you." And then there's this really corny monster. It's like, "Arr!" It's a kind of an infamous monster. I've seen the monster in stills for years, and I never finally saw the movie until now. But yeah. It's really kind of a cheap B-rate picture, but it's completely serviceable. It does seem a little patched together. I'll give that, because it has the narration. Anytime I hear narration over a lot of scenes, I think this is kind of a patch job in these older films. And it doesn't mean it's complete garbage or anything like that. So here's the basic plot. We have some generals and their soldiers trying to escape Cuba because it's been overturned, the government kind of overthrown, and some of the military guys are trying to get out of there with some gold. And they kind of bring this, they hire this guy who is an American who has this boat, who's just an overall con man, scumbag kind of guy. He's always looking for a deal to kind of, or trying to make a quick buck, to drive him to these islands and kind of lay low and steal the gold and come back eventually and whatever. And he'll get a cut of the gold. He has a couple of his goons with him, one guy who's a young kid who's ready to kill, one guy who makes a lot of animal sounds, who's super bizarre, his girlfriend, and then a new guy who ends up being an undercover agent who narrates the entire picture. So essentially what their plan is to pick off some of these Cubans and eventually take the gold for themselves after they dump the gold in the water. But what happens is they're dressing as a monster. There turns out to be a real monster. So there's like some romances on this island and all these kind of weird things and people double crossing. And there is this weird bug-eyed monster going around picking people off. And there's this narration and all sorts of silliness. The lead guy is just not a great character. He's always trying to save this pretty girl who's a villain, and it's just like, man, use your energy somewhere else. You're supposed to be this undercover agent. It's all rather silly. It's all rather kind of goofy, but it is exactly what you think a B picture would be if you're in like a drive-in and you watch the first movie and you're making out in the second one, and the beast, the creature from the haunted sea comes on. You're there, and it makes a great double feature with The Beast from the Haunted Cave, which I think is a better film. I think the acting in The Beast from the Haunted Cave, has Frank Wolf and some other names, and I think it's better acted, for sure. This one is cheesy, it's funny, it's goofy, I enjoyed it. Would I say it's an excellent film? No. Would I say it's an entertaining kind of B picture? Yeah, I'd get, and it looks good too. It's remastered and it looks solid. It's funny. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I've seen it. Any Corman movie to watch is always great. I'll gladly embrace a Roger Corman directed picture or produced picture. So, audio commentary for the theatrical Creature from the Haunted Sea by Tom Weaver, Roger Corman, Kintra Azucic, and Larry Blaumier. Original 16mm restored trailer for Creature from Haunted Sea. And we have the recut trailer. So, yeah, a lot of fun. These are short pictures, too. They're all about 75 minutes, which I love. Bring back the 75-minute movie. Hell, just bring back an 80-minute movie. I'll settle for a fucking 90-minute movie, guys. Please. Stop with the 4-hour movies. It's enough. It's enough. Okay? But anyways, great release from The Devil's Partner and The Creature from Haunted Sea from Film Masters. Good stuff. Check it out. Okay, we're in kind of for a treat here. So my Severin order came in, and I was like, I got time to watch one of them before my video. And I decided to watch the Spider Labyrinth 4K. This is directed by Gianfranco, what is his last name here? Giacchini, who, is not a director I'm super familiar with. And I had seen this movie one time, years ago on a bootleg, Spider Labyrinth, 1988. One of the last great Italian horror films. This is always was kind of touted as. People always wanted it on Blu-ray, 4K, whatever. They always called for it, DVD even. The movie never really got a release in the States. Spider Labyrinth was always a solid movie I enjoyed. Got a nice mystery angle to it. Kind of giallo, but more supernatural horror, Sect kind of movie. It feels like a lost, latter-day Dario movie or even Michele Soavi movie. It has the same kind of taste. Or like Dark Waters, the Italian-Russian co-production. It feels like in kind of that vein, which is the utmost compliment. So this movie takes place, it's filmed in Budapest, Hungary. So it gives it a great flair. So what we have is this kind of professor who's working on finding these different kind of, he studies kind of religions and the idea that people from all around the world will worship a different religion without any real contact. That's what he's interested in. And he's hired by this company and to look into it. And it's very big, very elaborate. So a priest, a businessman, and a CEO basically, I think, sent him over to Budapest, Hungary to look and do research from this professor. All the other professors are giving them information. This guy stopped. And he had some really interesting stuff, and he just kind of disappeared. So they send him there to figure out what's going on. And right when I was watching this, the lead actor, I was like, that guy is a dancer. I knew he's a dancer right away. Watching a lot of Italian films, you can tell like who's a dancer, who's not a dancer in the movies, because there's movies. So many of these movies take place in dance schools. The guy's a dancer, and then listen to the special features. He is a fucking ballet dancer. There we go. And his performance is bizarre. He plays a naive kind of quality, which is what you want, but he's just kind of like also stoic and weird because he has this element of weird. Like he doesn't really connect with people. I would compare it to something like the performance in Scanners by the lead Stephen Lack, which people are like he's lacking his performance, as we all get it. But it's not necessarily the easiest, the most smooth performance, but you could kind of chalk that up to like, is he doing that on purpose? It doesn't fit with the movie, and I'm up in the air about it, So this guy has obviously some childhood trauma involving a spider. So that kind of aspect, right? That aspect that he is going to try to figure out this kind of weird worshiping group that possibly this professor knows about, and he has this kind of trauma from a spider. Reminds me definitely of Lovecraft, right? Like Dagon or something, right? You have these dreams, these nightmares. You're called to it. You belong to it. It's fate. It's destiny that you belong to this area. So that's obviously this premonition or this kind of deep-seated root in his life, right? That he must go back to this place and the spider and get stuck in the Spider Labyrinth. And it's a great name for the title. So he starts to do research, and at first, people start to end up murdered. Of course, it's the professor, and he's strung up in this web. And before long, he realizes that there is somebody pursuing him, a mad killer with super strength and fangs and all sorts of weirdness going on. Really cool stuff. And as he digs deeper, he figures out the mystery. It becomes, very Rosemary's Baby in ways, and, people aren't saying who they are saying. And it just becomes a really good mystery with great special effects, and the underground caverns are wonderful. William Berger's in here, really good. Died shortly after. A good actor, in a lot of spaghetti westerns and horror films and Italian stuff, and German actor, good actor, good in here as this kind of priest who's warning him, trying to lead him through. The streets look great at night and in the day. They take the time to light them correctly. It's just a beautiful looking movie, especially in 4K. I was taken back. I was like, every frame of this excellent, and there's just some cool sets, especially in the caverns underground, or the labyrinth, if you will. But the ending is, of course, very infamous for some wild, wacky special effects, which I think are really well done. There's some full frontal nudity, which in the world of horror films now, like that are like made on not on a budget, you're like, welcome to full frontal nudity because it's not there. I don't care who it is, but it's just kind of some of the A24 will, but usually There'll be a lot of older people full frontal nudity. I don't care. I just think it's kind of ballsy to throw full frontal nudity in a horror film in general, or a film in general. And seeing that in here is just like, oh wow. And I mean, but it's just it's. I mean, you know where it's going in a lot of ways, but to see it unfold is beautiful, and to see the special effects and the murder sequences are good. They're obviously shout outs to Suspiria and Inferno and all these other movies that came before it. And if you listen to the commentary, they talk a lot about this movie and all these things and the shout outs and things like that. And if you listen to the director talk, which I liked, I listened to a lot of that. He mentions, I'm putting in stuff from like, Fellini and of course Polanski and stuff like that. And it's there. It's very Polanski like. He mentions The Tenant, Rosemary's Baby, and you see that stuff in here, right? It's in there. But it has its gore. It has its Italian influences big time too. Just overall, really good movie. Really enjoyed it. And I love these location movies, right? Taking place in a certain city where it's kind of almost a character in itself. Spider Labyrinth. It's always been a gem. It's just it's underseen. So I think everybody that eventually does get a chance to see it will enjoy it. And it's nice to see it on 4K. It's nice to see this thing look fucking good. It's got effects by Stivoletti too. So, he did a lot of Michele Soave's movies and Argento's movies and directed some movies like The Wax Mask. So, I mean, like, it's got the guys you want on it doing it well. The director mentions that he fought to have it shot in Budapest, Hungary, and he's glad because that added an element to it, but it also added a great crew, a crew that could do anything. And he said he had this look of like he could just have as many extras as he possibly could. It's a great release. I'm very happy. One of my favorites of the year, to be honest, from 2023. I guess it technically counts. But we have, of course, audio commentary with Dr. Will Dodson, professor of rhetoric and media studies, and Ryan Verrill, host of Disconnected. And that's on the 4K, but there's a bonus Blu-ray in here. Caught in a Web, interview with director. Arcania, interview with screenwriter. All the Colors of the Spider, interview with cinematographer Nino Celeste. Smile of the Spider-Woman, interview with actress Paula Rinaldi. Death in Stop Motion, interview with special effects artist Sergio Stivoletti. Web of the Weird, placing Spider Labyrinth in the weird genre with Dr. Will Dodson, Ryan Verrill, and Erica Schultz, author of The Sweetest Taboo, an unapologetic guide to child kills in film. What a great title for a book. That's pretty interesting too. I like seeing that. But yeah, this is a great movie, great release, wonderful. I'm definitely going to try to watch as many of the other Severn titles that I got from Black Friday. Some of my favorites in there, just some great stuff in 4K too. Look beautiful. This looks great. This is it. This is why I'm still alive. This kind of releases are keeping me alive. We got so many good releases. I can't die yet. I still haven't seen a couple movies get 4Ks and Blu-rays, right? That's why I'm holding on, guys. Come on. Don't disappoint me. You guys are doing great. I love all these releases from all these labels and boutique labels. It was a good year for that stuff. But anyways, Spider Labyrinth. Excellent. All right, let's do a couple new ones. First up is going to be Eli Roth Thanksgiving, which of course, was made as a fake trailer for Grindhouse. Eli Roth and his buddy wrote a script years ago when they were kids to do this fake, not fake, but they wanted to make a slasher. Why isn't there one on Thanksgiving? There's Halloween, there's prom night, there's all these kind of slashers. Why don't we have one on Thanksgiving? So it was kind of like a dream come true to write this. So they ended up writing this, making the fake trailer when Grindhouse came out, which was probably the best trailer. That and Don't were excellent. So basically he finally made this movie. And so first and foremost, we've been going in 2023. It's not a year that I've been deep diving into. I'm not doing a top 10. I have not watched enough horror films to do it. If you want to leave some recommendations, please go ahead. I will try to get to them. But I just kind of cherry picked the ones that I thought I would like. And, I'm more focused on older films this for a while. So, and we have a lot lately of this, trauma. A lot of trauma, a lot of, films that deal with that and they directly tie into the past, into the film's presence and, the present, and it has to relate. It all connects to this trauma, this stuff like that. And I have no problem with those movies. There's some great ones, Hereditary, but it's kind of like beating a dead horse, We're hitting at that stage now where it's enough is enough. I'm sure in the early 80s, by 82, people are like, enough with the fucking slashers already. And then when you go back, you visit them, you enjoy them, that timepiece, So we'll look back 5-10 years and be excited to watch these. But so in this time watching Thanksgiving, it was just really refreshing to watch just a fun horror movie. It was really fun. So basically on Black Friday, some people are killed in a horrible, Black Friday shopping kind of tragedy. A couple people are dead. There's a lot of it's videotaped. The main girl, her father kind of runs a store, all these kind of things and whatnot. So what happens is we kind of go a year later, somebody's had some injuries and we come back and I think it does feel like a 90s slasher in the mentality of who done it, who's the killer, all that kind of stuff. I feel it's there. So then we're kind of looking at who the possible killer is. And we have some actors that I recognize. You know, the guy from Hostel is in here. The guy who's like, I had sex with a woman 2 days ago. I don't even remember color of her nipples. I don't know the actor. I know he's a television actor. Patrick Dempsey's in here as the sheriff, as the handsome sheriff, you know. So it's all that kind of deal. It's fine. It's well acted. And I think the dialogue for once, you know, and I always complained about a lot of Eli Roth older, like Green Inferno is the one I complained about, right? Because I feel like he wrote that like 20 years ago, and he's like, these are millennials. And it's like, bro, that's like the people you grew up with. This is like, you should have updated this script better. I think Green Inferno is his only really shitty movie. I hate that movie. But as far as this one is I think the dialogue is better. I think the people talk like they talk, and I think that he got maybe I'm so disconnected from being young, but being around younger people, you know, I feel like the dialogue is a little bit more appropriate in this, and I think it's correct. And I think the dialogue's good. I think the characters are solid. I think the kills are good. I think they're fun. I think they're entertaining as shit. I was really happy with the kills in here. I was really happy with everything in this movie except the runtime. It's a little too long. But the parade scene is great. The ending's good. There's some gnarly shit in here. It keeps the right tone of, you know, it's fun. As disgusting as it all is, it's fun. It's not completely goofy enough. Some of the effects go a little further where you're like, that's kind of cheesy looking, but hell, it works. You know, the pike through the head and the blood, that's fun. Overall, I thought this was really good. I was entertained by it, you know. And you know, I'm not an Eli Roth hater. I'm also not, you know, the biggest on earth Eli Roth fan. You know, I think he loves horror films, and I appreciate what he does a lot of the times, but sometimes, you know, they don't work for me. But hey, who gives a shit what I think? But as far as, you know, watching this one, I think if you want something with like a lot of gore that has some of the 90s touches to it, which I'm not the biggest 90s slasher fan guy, you guys know that. But it does have, you know, some of the 80s touches too, and the gore and the funness and just the overall, you know, whodunit kind of mentality, which I like. So I think this is good. I would recommend this. This is probably one of my favorite movies of the year. It's easy watch. I would probably watch this on Thanksgiving. You know, it's better than Home Sweet Home. Which ain't saying much, but I don't know why. I'm such a glutton for punishment. I've watched Home Sweet Home 3-4 times, and it's just like one of these things now. It's from '81 that I'm like, am I starting to like Home Sweet Home? I think I am. And that's just like from familiarity, I think, and just maybe just brain damage overall from watching all these fucking movies all the time. But anyways, Thanksgiving, really liked it. Okay, we got another one here from 2023, and this is When Evil Lurks, and this is Damien Rugna, I think is his name. He directed, of course, Terrified from a few years ago. Excellent horror film, very scary, and he did a short in Satanic Hispanics, which is the best short of the anthology, of course. So this director is very good at showing you shit that you don't expect to see. Very dark, very graphic. He has a unique look on his movies. They're very grim, very fucking grim. Not any comedy in here, very gross. Depressing kind of looks at movies. So we open up and we're kind of in this world, right? In this world where there seems to be such a thing as possessed. It rarely happens, but it's incredibly dangerous. It seems to happen in the cities. These rural people don't think it will happen there. But what happens is this younger person was possessed, and they were kind of hidden for a while, and they've grown up into like this blob of this nasty evil, and they're laying there. And when some of the locals find out about them, they tell the person who owns the land, and he wants to get rid of this possessed as fast as possible. They try to tell the officials. They don't care. It's not their problem. They don't believe them. The cleaner, who knows how to specially clean these people, has obviously had something tragic happen to him, and it leaves it up to these two brothers and this guy to take care of it. Of course, moving this possessed is not the best option, considering the fact that this thing leaks evil. And wherever this evil touches, it infects. So you see where this is going to happen, right? We're going to follow these two brothers mostly as one tries to find his family and bring them back. So what happens is, you know, everything starts to spread in really crazy ways. It gets graphic, it's gross, there's some real fucked up imagery. So whenever you release the evil, whatever around is immediately taken in with the evil, right? So it reminds me, honestly, of The Happening in a couple parts, right? With the scene where, like, the whatever that pheromones hit you, you just try to kill yourself. And this is like, I'm evil now. You know? And I mean, I'm not comparing the quality between those two movies. They're vastly different. Although The Happening is not quite as bad as people say. Mark Wahlberg's performance maybe, but it's not quite as bad as people say. So as like the movie progresses, you know, it gets crazier and crazier. The one issue I had with it, and this is the character's written like this, he's supposed to be like this. This lead guy's a fucking moron. He's a fuck up. He's a loser. And they portray him as a loser in the beginning. He's just an overall loser. He has had some run-ins with the law. He's done some tragic things. He's lost his family. He's just a loser. He's a broken man, and he makes broken decisions without thinking about them, putting other people in danger several times, all the time. And like I said earlier, these great kind of characters. He's definitely a great character. It's hard to believe he's that fucking stupid, though. But hey, sometimes the people that are that stupid last the longest, right? Unfortunately, just everyone around them doesn't. But there's a couple scenes in this movie where it's just iconic. You know, the axe and the scene of the character walking down the street carrying something and just casually eating it was like next level. What the fuck? This is a great movie. It's very good. It's very well done. It's very creepy. It's very balls to the wall. Doesn't pull its punches. But at the same time, everybody is going bananas for it. I think they're looking for that next big thing. This, to me, is not the next big thing. If I were to make a top 10, would it be in there? Absolutely. It'd have to be. Top 5, of course. But, you know, I think from what I've seen last year was better. But then again, I am not the person to ask what the best movies of the year are for 2023. I mean, I like Thanksgiving. I liked, you know, Candyland. And I liked When Evil Lurks. I liked Project Wolf Hunting. I didn't see that much. I didn't watch that much. So give me some recommendations, a couple here and there, and I'm sure I'll find something I like. There's some other ones I saw too that were okay. Sick was okay, you know. But last year, I mean, I think there was 4 or 5 bangers that I was just like, oh, these are fantastic. Like, I love Pearl and X, and the sadness was just, it's just the best. I love the sadness. That kind of stuff's made for me. But When Evil Lurks is a very well constructed, very well done film. Probably get better on second viewing. Terrified did. I think Terrified's a better movie. I do. I really do. I think it's just better thought out. But this one, you know, this isn't a... You hear the plot and you think, is this going to be balls to the wall insanity? Is it going to be an Outbreak movie? It's not that. But there's some crazy imagery in it, and I got to respect that. So, When Evil Lurks, good stuff. I think it's better than... what was the one where it takes place on the farm that everybody loved? That they're going crazy for with, Xander Berkeley as kind of the satanic character, the devil. I think it's better than that one. That one I just was a little lukewarm on. I thought it was a good movie, but it just wasn't my jam. This one I think is more my jam, but it's not as good as I heard it was. But that's over being a victim of overhyping it. But Thanksgiving was just as good as I thought. You know, I mean, I heard it was good, and you know, I wasn't disappointed with that. This one, I wouldn't say I was disappointed with it. I would say it's appropriately. I don't even think it's a little overrated. When Evil Lurks, still great, just is not as great as I would have liked it. But that goes without saying. It goes with everything, right? But yeah, check it out. It's well worth your time. It's on Shudder. I think people will like it. It'd be hard. I haven't heard anyone dislike it. I can't imagine disliking this movie. But hey, who knows? All right, let's get into those 1981 movies.
Woe be unto him who opens one of the 7 gateways to hell, because through that gateway, evil will invade the world.
a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on and on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. In this little town, when the 14th comes round, there's a silence and fear in the air. Remember the morn that the legend was born, all the shock and the horror was there. Oh, the legend, they say, on a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago.
All right, we got some weird 1981 movies here. I went down the Brazilian kind of kick, and remember, there's like 4 or 5 horror movies from Brazil this year, and they all have more of a sexual kind of touch to them, and they're more so like exploitation. So I covered Violence in Flesh a little bit ago, right? So Violence in Flesh is a movie that Impulse Pictures put out, and this is about a group of escaped convicts that kind of take all these like actresses and actor and director hostage, and they rape and kill and then whatever, and it's considered a horror film. On that movie, they basically mentioned that Brazil at the time was allowed to make movies with as much sex and violence as they could, but they could not have anything political in them. So all these movies here, I feel, are in that vein, right? Now, some of them kind of dip into horror more, some of them dip more into psychological weirdness, and some of them are just more sex comedy, but then there's a horror element to it. So the first one here, Freaks. Remember, I did AI subtitles on all 3 of these movies. So, hey, the subtitles aren't perfect, but I think I got the gist of it. So Here Freaks is an anthology, 3 different directors here. The first one is kind of this story about this kind of nerdy guy that is spying on this woman. Very comedic, very just sexploitation. Ends up having sex with her. All these end in sex. Pretty, fairly graphic sex scene. Not a bad sex scene, I guess. Kind of interesting, I guess. Nothing special. Nothing interesting there, to be honest. The second one is about a husband and a wife burying her husband. Seem to have some animosity towards him. And there's a younger man there. And they end up having sex right in the funeral room. And a long kind of sexual encounter and all these kind of things like that. And when somebody comes to see it, feels like the body has been thrown from the coffin and they're sleeping in it or possibly dead. Who knows? A little bit more interesting than the last one. But the final segment in Here Freaks is the one that really takes the cake for fucking bonkersness. And horror and insanity. And I just kind of was like, are we in the Untold Story now? This whole thing is from the Untold Story. Not the comedic elements, but still. So we have this guy, this Asian man, Chinese man, who is picking up this prostitute. And he makes a deal with her. Hey, come back to my house. And it's long, it's weird, it's drawn out until they get back to the house. And he starts painting her, and he has these weird sexual fantasies. And eventually, it turns into a night of, rape, sodomy, and murder. And not exactly in that order either. So you get where I'm getting at here. So it turns into this graphic rape, this basically kill, murder, and then rape of a dead body. So we have necrophilia, we have all these taboos, and we have like sodomy, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, man, this is kind of out of left field here. It went as crazy as it possibly could. And we have a graphic decapitation. Basically the only way I can talk about this and sell this is just running down what the fuck happens. You know what I mean? Because this is going to appeal to a certain group of people, and not very many, right? And this character here just basically disembowels her, cuts her pieces, and it plays into something earlier involving food and sales and things like that. But yeah, it's very much Untold Story, which is weird. Having the Chinese actor in here too, which is bizarre, and I think he's actually the director of the segment. But this one obviously stands out above the others. It's a horror short. It's graphic. It's weird. It's bizarre. And these are short. These Brazilian movies are like 70, 80 minutes. No more than 80 minutes. But this one, I wouldn't give it a whole hard recommend. I think maybe for, completists of horror films or fans of Brazilian horror or South American horror, I think that last segment is worth watching. This is Here Freaks. Weird, bizarre film. Okay, the next one is another kind of anthology in sorts. It's called Two Strange Women, Diana and Eva. So it's 2 stories in one. The first story kind of follows Diane, Is it Diane or Eva? And she is this. She's unhappily married. And one day she's being interrogated by police. So we know something happened. Murder. She committed murder. She kind of wanders into this bar to get cigarettes, and she sees this guy that looks identical to her husband. She says, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at work." And he says, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about, lady." So she's weirded out. She ends up going back there again, and it turns out this guy is not her husband, but she thinks it's her husband. It's very weird, very complicated, kind of like obviously some psychological things, mental illness possibly going on. She starts to have an affair with this guy. While her husband starts to get very violent about it and thinks something's going on. He starts to measure the whiskey, all these things like that. Before long, we have this murder that takes place. A lot of graphic stuff, and there's a rape, of course. How could you not? In these Brazilian movies, it seems like they can't get it's almost like a Hong Kong movie. It's just like, well, you got to have a rape in here, especially early 80s. So, and this one is weird, interesting, strange stuff. The second one, Eva. Now this, I think, actually stars John Doe, who directed the segment in Here Freaks and also stars in it, the last one, the horror-oriented one. And I think he's in this one. And in the very beginning, he's laying with his wife, and he has this nightmare about, sleeping with this woman as another man. He's this other guy. And this guy leaves this woman after he's strangled her, you think, and he dies in a car accident. He wakes up in a horror and a fear. And he goes driving, and he's going cross country, and he ends up picking up this woman. And we have this weird kind of loop story structure where we're like, are we in a dream? Are we kind of these people reliving these moments? All these kind of weird things like that. Also bizarre. Sex in here as well. Interesting. These are both kind of interesting, unique movies. Without the subtitles being 100% proper, it's kind of hard to, if I'm missing anything, I'm not 100%. But overall, I thought that Two Strange Women, Diane and Eva, was better than Here Freaks. But that last segment, Here Freaks, is better than anything in both the other ones. So it's like, where do we measure here? But interesting nonetheless. A lot of sex. This one, obviously, not political, but definitely psychological. Maybe making some comments about how women are treated. Who knows? But Two Strange Women, bizarre. And the final Brazilian one from 1981 is Lilian the Dirty. And this is by far the best one, I think. This follows the story of a woman who works as a secretary, and she's just tired of being sexually objectified by her boss and other people. So she kind of starts to find older men and kill them. She murders them, she has sex with them and murders them, and leaves a calling card, Lilian the Dirty, Lilian e Suja. And there's police investigation at the same time. Kind of following this, trying to figure out everything that's going on. And we're also following a trio of criminals who are ruthless monsters. You see them rape and kill a couple in the very beginning. You kind of recognize some of them. I think that one of them actually is in Two Strange Women, one of the rapists. So these criminals are kind of, we cut back to them between them and Lilian. And you're like, how are these characters going to intermingle? What the hell's going to happen here? I mean, they do see her walk by at one point and kind of cat color, I think, in the very beginning, if I'm not mistaken. But as it goes on, she carries out more and more murders, and some of them get more graphic, and eventually, her boss is pressing on her, and that's where it's going to go. But there's one of the actors in here who pops up in Violence and Flesh, the prisoner who is the one who commits, rapes the gay actor. He is in this, and there's a sequence which is very funny because he's like hooking up with her, and there's like a 5-minute dance scene, and there's like a scene where he's like has to dance for like 5 minutes, and I was just like, bro, like if you're there doing this, like how long do I gotta fucking dance? Like, are we done with this shot? Like, I've been dancing for 5 fucking minutes. I'm 50 years old. I'm in the shower naked, bro. You don't need all this coverage of me dancing. Like, it's funny, and he's just got this smile on his face because he's like, it's just so funny. He's just like this Brazilian character actor that's just like forced to dance for like 20 minutes, probably an hour on the fucking set. But no, I mean, there's plenty of nudity, and the performance by Lilian is pretty good. She's pretty unhinged. Good performance, and she has this relationship with her mother, who's always having these premonitions. She's very ill about her daughter doing weird things, of Lilian running down the street, Lilian killing, and so it seems to be there. But the ending ties it together in the weirdest way. Kind of like how police do solve crimes sometimes by just letting it wrap itself up, right? Letting it fall into their fucking lap. Sometimes that does happen. But interesting movie. I like this one. I'd like to see it with proper subtitles, maybe some context and everything. So out of the 4 Brazilian ones, there's one more I think that came out this year, Sexo Profuso. Maybe I'll try to get AI subs on that. Maybe I won't. But it's interesting to dive into some of these and see the world cinema from all around, the 80s and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm gonna go in depth, man. I'm trying to watch it all. The subtitles don't help, not having them, or not having a computer with the high capacity to render perfect subtitles, but it gets complicated, it gets weird. But I've seen enough films that I can get the gist of it, especially when I'm not watching, I don't think I could do a Russian film or, East European film without subtitles and grasp it, or a giallo, because there's so many things going on in that. But, I can get the gist of it in a sex kind of horror film, maybe, possibly. But Lilian the Dirty. Good stuff. Okay, now we have one from Taiwan. Thrilling Bloody Sword. Is it Thrilling Bloody Sword? I believe it is Thrilling Bloody Sword. And this one is fucking bonkers. This is a fantasy, kind of horror-oriented action film. And a lot like the Hong Kong movies of the time, the Taiwan ones are weird. This one is even weirder. And this follows the story of basically a woman is giving birth to... She gets hit by this in her stomach by some space thing. The king is like, what the fuck's going on? She dies during childbirth. There's an egg, weird egg. And the king says, get rid of this fucking thing. I don't want this. They throw it away. 7 dwarfs, I'm not making this shit up, 7 dwarfs find this egg. It's a baby. It's a beautiful baby girl. They raise her up. And now she seems to have maybe some magic power. She's attached to the queen. And we also have this kind of, I think he's a prince who is kind of this really like nice, great guy, yada, yada, yada. I don't remember exactly how he ties into the story, but regardless, there is these 2 evil kind of sorcerers, a male and female, and they are creating monsters across this kind of countryside, and they're sending them out, and then kind of going to the king and being like, hey, we can get rid of them if you pay us. And basically, they get the trust of the king, and their idea is to overthrow the kingdom, yada, yada, yada. But this top prince has stopped, this top warrior has stopped one of the monsters, so they want him out of the picture, and the king starts to like her. The king eventually learns that this girl who's living with these dwarfs is his daughter, and he wants her back, but it's too late because the evil sorcerers have all these kind of plans. They want to marry her and take over the kingdom and yada yada yada. So we have these giant elaborate weird kind of fucking fights. There's this point where our hero has to fight these stone creatures. He also has the help of a fairy, so we have a Tinkerbell in here, and he has the help of these dwarfs. So it is a weird fucking movie. There's a lot of silly comedy, a lot of goofiness, a lot of big weird looking monsters, a lot of flying monsters towards the end of the movie that is reminiscent of something like The Seventh Curse, which is a really fun, great movie from '86 that I think everybody should see. So like we see this kind of stuff in here, this earlier stuff, and it's a fun, weird, bonkers ass movie with a lot of action, a lot of colors. It's not been remastered perfectly, but it looks pretty good, the versions you can find out there. I think that Gold Ninja remastered this at one point as best as they could. Gold Ninja is kind of like a gray market. They put commentaries and stuff on their releases and things like that. But so Thrilling Bloody Sword, I was entertained by it. I'm glad I watched it. Another good Taiwan kind of flick. This is probably the best Taiwan horror film I've seen from '81. A lot of them are just kind of in the vein of like a ghost story or something off or more kung fu oriented. This is definitely sword and fantasy, kind of sword and sandal fantasy kind of elements here, and just goofiness. Very goofy, but good. Thrilling Bloody Sword, I recommend checking it out for sure. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it there. It's definitely there. Okay, the next one is a Shaw Brothers flick. This is definitely more of the exploitation vein, more of a thriller. And this is The Murderer Pursues. And this is a good film. It's by the director from the same year, the Mob Flicks Patrol. And it shares a lot of the cast from the Mob Flicks Patrol. It shares a lot of familiar faces, to be honest. It shares the heavyset guy from The Beast, and who's also in Mob Flicks Patrol. He plays a cop in this one. It has the main villain from The Beast is in here. And a couple other people you'd recognize. The real thin guy from Spooky Encounters of the... Not Spooky Encounters, he's in Encounters of the Dangerous Kind. He's also in Mob Flicks Patrol. So we just have a ton of these actors and that are just in all these kind of Hong Kong movies that you'd watch at the time. And this one's really good. I really like this one, and I really like Mob Flicks Patrol. But these are both more in the thriller aspects here. So, what we have here in the very beginning of this film, like I said, there's more people from The Beast in here as well that you'd recognize. Just a bunch of familiar faces. We have these, where were they from? I think these people were originally from Taiwan? They were from Vietnam. And they're at this refugee camp. And there's kind of 2 factions at each other's throats. There's a group of 5 that were kind of, we know them, they're their main characters here. And what happens is, this group of 5 gets in a fight, a big old fight with these other people, and somebody's killed. They all run away from the refugee camp, and they kind of separate to try to live in Hong Kong. And the main guy here has an uncle who is the heavy guy, who they call like Fatty. You've seen him in a million movies. He's a good actor. I think he's even in Run and Kill. So this big guy, he's a police officer. He takes his nephew under his wing, and him and his wife, they raise him, and they give him a good job and everything like that. And we kind of fast forward a couple of years, and it appears that his buddies, his 4 buddies, are still living in Hong Kong, and they are kind of a criminal element, right? They're robbing, and there's a great bank robbery scene where they actually stop another gang from robbing this bank and kill them, and then start robbing the bank, this jewelry store. It's really good stuff. It's cool stuff. Reminded me of Hell of Straight Time. So that's a really good scene here. And as it progresses, we learn that the people they killed in this jewelry store thief were brothers to a real Mad Dog guy who's out of prison, and this guy's going to stop it. No way he's stopping until he kills this entire fucking gang. And eventually other people get killed in there. He doesn't like this fat cop because he arrested him. Sorry, I'm referring to him as Fat Cop because everybody in a Hong Kong movie is fatty. There's a fatty in every Hong Kong movie you've ever watched ever. It's just referred to as fatty. So essentially what happens is, of course, he's pitting them against each other and he's picking them off and nobody knows he's there until the very end. And we have this brotherhood of characters and all this stuff like that. It's really good. It's really solid. I like all the acting. Good. And this and Mobflix Patrol would make a great double feature. It's more like a thriller, like I said, but I'm glad. And anytime I can watch a modern day Shaw Brothers movie, I enjoy them. I like the gunplay. I like the kung fu movies. I like the period piece horror movies more than the kung fu movies, but I like a lot of the modern day stuff because I like the crazy high rise apartments. I like that shit. And a lot of the Shaw Brothers movies are not contemporary for the time. And I don't hate the ones that are period pieces. They're good too. But I really do like watching the contemporary stuff, whether it's a kung fu movie or an action movie or a horror film or a thriller or something like this, a thriller drama kind of exploitation picture. So this is good stuff. I would really recommend checking out Murderers. I wouldn't call it exploitation exactly, drama thriller. The Murderers Pursue. Good stuff. Okay, now we're going to hop into that Patreon pick, and I can't remember who picked this one. Was it Eau Claire? I don't want to mistake, but this is the Chronicles of Narnia from 2005, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, first and foremost, I'm not familiar with these books. I know that this one was made, and it's not the first book. So right when I dived into this, I saw Tilda Swinton. I was like, oh, that's very cool. This is an epic kind of movie that was made at the time when there was a lot of these being made, like The Lord of the Rings, and eventually it got oversaturated. I never saw these. I know they were produced by Disney, the first two, and whatnot. But so we have a lot of voice talents in here: Michael Madsen, Liam Neeson, and there's other people, Ray Winstone. So that's always welcomed, of course. As far as the kid actors are concerned, I really didn't recognize them. A lot of them didn't go out to do too much. I don't know. Maybe it's the Anakin Skywalker curse, right from Episode 1. He's just like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. These people are cruel and miserable, and everybody's bitching about the movies. Whatever. So. And first and foremost, I had a real hard time being invested in these characters. I felt like I was just thrown into a world, and sometimes I like that. I feel like it happened a couple times, like Adventures of Buckaroo Bonanza. I remember watching that. I need to revisit it, but I was just like, what is this? I feel like I'm supposed to know everything, and I know nothing. And some people might like that weirdness. That's what makes it a cult movie, right? It's not for everybody. I could revisit that for sure, but I was thrown in here, and I was just like, I'm not invested in any of these characters. Of course, it takes place during World War, I think, is it 1 or 2? But anyways, these kids, they have to move with some distant relative, and they find that in the wardrobe is the key to another world. And they are in there for what they seem days, years, hours, but really they're only in there for seconds. Jim Broadbent is also in the film. Gotta love Jim Broadbent. So as they go into this wardrobe, you realize that there's a struggle between these good kingdom and this bad kingdom, right? Tilda Swinton is the witch, the lion is Liam Neeson, and they eventually join forces with the good side, and the whole thing goes into this giant battle. What I did like about it, there's a scene where they show all the villains, and when they use practical effects, not all the CGI is bad, I mean for the time especially, but they use practical effects, some of the boars and some of the monsters and pigs, they look fucking cool. It was really cool seeing all those monsters kind of cheer on and all these characters in the background. I thought that was really neat. And I like that. I just wish, it reminds me of some of the good scenes in Lord of the Rings, right? When the ogres are there, like Meats on the Menu boys and stuff like that. It's been a while since I watched Lord of the Rings movies, but I remember enjoying those. So that was really cool and that stuff. But as far as the story is concerned, I didn't really get invested in any of the characters. I didn't care what happened to them. I didn't. And some of the acting I thought was really patchy, to be honest. I thought it was kind of shitty. Not Tilda Swinton, of course, not Jim Broadbent, but I thought some of the acting, not even the kids really, they weren't great, but they weren't horrible, I would say. They're not bad, but they're just, whatever. But something like that, the guy, the Minotaur guy, I was like, what the fuck is he doing? I'm not trying to point out, but it's just not a good character. Just didn't give a shit. So there's a lot of stuff where I just wasn't invested. I'm really not the target audience for this. I mean, I do like kind of fantasy movies, but I think that I missed my time for this movie. I'm not familiar with the books. That also doesn't help. This isn't the first book, so I'm completely thrown into a world of something that I don't, like. I mean, I do like stuff like Heavenly Creatures, which is about two characters creating this fantasy world of themselves. But that's a true story, and it turns into a murder, and it's a Peter Jackson. It's all sorts of shit, you know? So, like, I do like my fantasy, and I like my Sword and Sandal movies. I like my, Fulci Conquest. I like lots of this stuff. And I'm even a fan of Lord of the Rings books and the movies. But this could not grasp my attention. I don't know if it's just something that it's poorly done from the story because I have not read the story. I don't know, but overall, I just thought this was like long and hard for me to get my attention. I didn't care for much of the characters. I wasn't invested. I thought some of the effects were really cool. I thought the battle was all right. It's just something that I think I missed my time and place to enjoy this. So that's Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I probably won't watch the other ones unless somebody picks them for Patreon. I'll have no problem watching them then, and I would give this another fair shake, possibly down the line. But this one was really hard to get my attention. Just not made for me. It's not my thing. All right, questions, comments, concerns, all that jazz. iKid3240. Corman Satara is one of my favorite flicks. When I was a kid in the 80s, it used to always play on the USA Network. So that film, as well as the other Corman produced, the film Dementia 13, are nostalgia favorites of mine. We got, Shaw Andrew Sampson. You are hot, man. Want a blowjob? Okay, Stoke Scab. Wish you great health, man. Hopefully everything gets better soon. I've been having some medical issues too lately. I'm almost 39 and it felt great my whole life, but lately it's been rough. So I know what you're going through. Good luck, my dude. Get better too, man. It's crazy how fast your health can take a dive. Stephen Hyde, sending you a lot of love, buddy. Wishing you a great recovery. Thank you. Ellen Rowe Kelly, hope your health improves quickly. Thank you very much. The Nick Moore from Belgium. My very best wishes for this brand new year, young sir, an end to our troubles. I hope you'll enjoy Conga, but who doesn't love Michael Gow hamming it up, other than grumpy critics? Questions. Do you ever fear you'll run out of room for your vast collection? I mean, I always am upgrading stuff so I can like put that away or get rid of it as long as I don't have features. I'm not worried. I mean, there's plenty of stuff in this house. I probably would just have to put it somewhere else, which I wouldn't want to do. How do you decide to get rid of a movie, if ever? I mean, if I've upgraded and I don't have any of the features carried over, that's when I get rid of it. 3. Which 2023 horror movie were you really excited for, but proved to be disappointing? For me, it was Dear David. It just didn't get the tone, gel, and is tonally uneven. I don't know. I wasn't too super hyped for anything. Honestly, I try not to get super hyped for new movies in general. I just try not to get hyped, so I don't really know. I mean, When Evil Lurks was good. It's just not as good as I thought it might be, or maybe it's overhyped, but I wasn't disappointed. I thought it was good. So I don't know. I don't really have one. Give my best wishes to the cats and see you next time. Okay, Zick Tick Extra, the only sci-fi movie where the inciting incident is a thrown stick. That's hilarious. Crazy movie, by the way. It is cold in this room, guys, and my mouth is bothering me. Fetish Magic. Hope all your health troubles get resolved soon, sweet Mrparka. Maybe putting on a little weight wouldn't necessarily look bad on you. Great informative video. As always, looking forward to seeing your uploads. Thank you, I appreciate it. Ken Coakley. In the comments section, you mentioned A Christmas Carol, A Ghost Story. I agree, fully. I've seen at least 4 versions. There was a 38 version with Reginald Owen as Scrooge and Leo G. Carroll of Tarantula as Jacob Marley's ghost. I saw it in theater with Christmas in Connecticut. Black and white on the big screen is amazing. I also saw the 1970 musical Scrooge starring Albert Finney as Scrooge and Alec Guinness, I imagine, as the ghost of Jacob Marley. I saw it on a double bill with Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. Scrooge was very dark. First, Alec Guinness's face appeared on the door knocker, then a coachman ghost rides through the room, then Marley appears, warning Scrooge about hell. Then later on, he is in hell, then he wakes up. And the movie is rated G. There was also a version in 1951 starring Alistair Sim as Scrooge, Michael Hordern from Theatre of Blood, and Patrick Macney from The Howling as the young Jacob Marley. Mortem's performance as a ghost had a tortured look about it. They also have a shot of a homeless woman trying to keep her baby warm while spirits that were damned are surrounding her. For the 1951, that was pretty gruesome. A Christmas Carol is my favorite Dickens story, and I watch those versions every Christmas. It's a great story. I do have a quick question. Do you take time out to watch non-horror, or are you all movied out from reviewing horror exploitation? I mean, if I do, it'll be on... I pretty much cover everything on this show. So... for 90% of the stuff is covered on the show that I watch, so maybe more. Mad Science Films. We'll be fascinated to hear what you think of The Appointment. I'll definitely get to it for 82. But yeah, let's hop into the update, guys, and we're out of here. All right, hop into this update. First up, we have Delamore, which is Cemetery Man, of course, 4K from Severin, one of my all-time favorite movies, 1994, Michele Soavi, great film, Rupert Everett. I just love this movie. It's wonderful. It's going to look great in 4K. Can't wait to watch it. Look very much forward to it. Might watch it tonight. Then we have The Church. Again, another Michele Soavi, his second film after Stage Fright. Really good movie, aka Demons 3 to some. Yeah, this is a beautiful, weird, bizarre film. Gets better with every viewing, I think. I've always enjoyed it. Great cover art, too. Then we have The Sect, 91. Great movie, Michele Soavi again. We got a Michele Soavi triple feature. Herbert Lom in here. It's a really cool movie. Very Roman Polanski-esque. Just a wonderful movie, too. A lot of great iconic imagery. And of course, I'll show Spider Labyrinth. I reviewed it, so it won't be an update, but I did get it, of course. And then, of course, we have Raiders of the Living Dead, which I've seen parts of this. Just remember it being a really silly, goofy zombie movie, which I'm all for. So check that out on Blu-ray. Can finally retire my DVD. And I think there's like 3 versions of this fucking movie on here. Well, yeah, I think there is, so that's crazy. Or a couple versions on here for sure. Yeah. Original cut, that's very cool. And second alternate version, that's insane. So 3 cuts of Raiders of the Living Dead. Then we have The Dead One, which is a movie I'm not too familiar with, but it sounded interesting enough. An old school zombie film. If you're kind of a person who seeks out old low budget horror films, and this one's for you, you'll love The Voodoo Ritual. Okay, sounds cool. 1960. Is this the first basically color zombie film? I think they mentioned it in the podcast, and they're like, it's got to be, or something like that. I'm not 100% sure on it, but cool, nonetheless. Then we have Closed Circuit, which is a movie I don't know too much about, you know? Just sounded interesting enough. Going to the Movies Can Be Murder. An Italian flick, for sure. Very cool. And then we have Stir, which is an Australian prison movie. All screws are scum. Don't know much about this one either, but I like to discover new things all the time. Then we have The Unscarred by Buddy G, who did Combat Shock, an excellent movie. This one I don't know much about either, but James Russo's in here, so yeah, hope to check this one out too. Buddy G makes pretty good movies. And then we have a 4K of Rosemary's Baby, good price. Speaking of Roman Polanski earlier. But yeah, it's a classic. I'm pretty sure everybody knows Rosemary's Baby. Been a while since I watched it. Then, of course, we have Mark of the Vampire right here. Warner Archive, Todd Browning picture. So why not? Good stuff. Yeah, that's the update. Let's get back to the video. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.